this must be what it feels like to be Taylor Swift. No wonder she toured for 3 years. I get it. Well, let me just skip ahead. So today we're going to be talking about building legacy through intentional living. It's something we talk a lot about together and have a lot of conversations about. But before we dive in, there's a number of people in this room that I wanted to spend a few minutes on. I want to thank our partners that made today possible. We have the best partners in this room. They're sitting all around you. I really hope you guys get to take some time and meet them. What makes what we do so great and so valuable is that we have partners whose values align around ours. Trust, integrity, education first. We always educate, we never sell. And this is really unprecedented access, so take advantage of it. Wall Street doesn't like to let you in. They don't like to let you see how decisions are made, who's making them, but today you have that opportunity. So, find them at their tables out here, at lunch, at the cocktail party, and make sure to really kind of take advantage of that, because these people are the best in the business. I also want to thank our incredible team. This year's theme is Elevated Advice for Elevated Aspirations, and I could not think of a better group of people to deliver on that promise than the people I have the privilege of working with every single day. So I would love who's ever in the room from the team to stand: Josh, Emmy, Bo, Amanda, Connor, Bridger, Evan. If you guys can stand, give a wave. And lastly, none of us could do this without our families. I want to thank my incredibly supportive husband, Danny Voy, my little girl, and my dad's in the room. You can always count on your parents to show up, so I knew at least one seat would be filled today. So as we go through today, if you have any questions, follow-up things you want to talk about, reach out to Emmy. She's got the red hair in the back. She has all the power. She has access to my calendar, and she will make sure we address any ongoing questions you have. So without further ado, let's go on a little bit of a journey together. As I look around this room, I see a lot more than just successful professionals. I see people who have chosen us as partners on their financial journey. You guys have shared with us your hopes, your dreams, your fears, and that's something we don't ever take for granted. And just as many of you guide others in your leadership roles, I've learned that the power of guidance begins with a very clear plan. For me, that started a long time ago, in what could have been an unexpected place, the ice rink at 5 a.m. A big shout out to my mom who did those drives. She's the best. Because planning is how we create success. When I was 8, I was a competitive ice skater. Every morning I'd wake up at 5 a.m., I'd arrive at the rink with my little blue notebook tucked under my arm, and my coach would lay it on the boards, and she'd write down everything I had to do that day. 5 double sow cows, 10 axles, run your program 3 times, layback spins. And in that same notebook, she'd write down my weekly goals, and I write down my big goals, my big dreams. I remember, by the time I'm 9, I want to try my triple sow cow. By the time I'm 12, I want to represent the United States of America. I had big dreams. What I didn't realize then was that my coach was teaching me something far more valuable than just what I was doing every day, than just landing jumps. She was showing me that exceptional achievement does not happen by accident. It happens by design. This became the foundation of my approach to wealth management, of working with all of you in this room. But I hadn't learned one very important question that I needed to ask alongside of that. When will you know that you've made it? So, years later, at cocktail parties, I began asking this question. I mean, you've probably been there, like you're kind of like in the corner and somebody's telling you about how awesome they are. They have like 5 rental properties, their kids are crushing it at college, they're like skiing every day. And you're kind of like, okay, like, so what, right? Like, what does that mean? When will you know you've made it though? Have you made it because your kids are doing awesome, because you're skiing? Like, is that it? Like, what does that look like for you? And most of the time when you ask this question, especially if somebody's kind of gone on for a long time, they don't know what to say. They're like a little shocked. They're like, oh, okay. But a number of times I asked this question and I got some incredible answers. One time I asked a musician, I was like, when will you know you've made it? What does that look like? They knew with absolute clarity. Well, it looks like playing at a sold-out crowd at Carnegie Hall. I was like, cool. That would be pretty sweet. Another time I asked this question, I was at the Jeremy Ranch Country Club having dinner. This man in a black turtleneck, I'll never forget, it was years ago. He was chatting with me, telling me about all the different things he had done. I was like, when will you know? Like, when will you know if you've made it? You've done so much. He looked at me right in the eye and he said, well, you know what? I already have. I made it when I produced Demolition Man. And just last year, I sold $250 million of commercial real estate. I made it. And I was like, wow, oh my God. What struck me was his clarity. He knew. My skating coach had taught me how to plan for achievement, but this man had done something equally as important. He defined what achievement meant to him. Because without this wisdom, we're left with the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. If we don't know where we're going, any road will do. What difference does it make? This is where I see so many successful people stumble. They work tirelessly. They accumulate wealth nonstop. They find themselves chasing returns. Or worse, stressing about market volatility, stressing about tariffs. Who's been there this week? When often the reality is they've already achieved everything they've ever dreamed of. So if that's the case, what are we doing? Why are we stressing? What is this pursuit about? Josh and I, we each have questions that we rely on when we're getting to know somebody. Josh likes to ask people, what's the hardest thing you've ever done? We find out so much about people when we ask this question. But what it really does is it gives us insight into who they are and why they are who they are, what their trials and tribulations were that shaped where they're going. And so then when I ask next, when will you know that you've made it? We have a little more insight into the why. Because without this clarity, without both of those pieces of clarity, financial planning, it becomes an endless pursuit with zero fulfillment. Fast forward to 2002, the moment I knew. I'm stepping onto the ice in Rouen, France. I'm with my synchronized skating team, and this is a moment I'll remember forever. I'm gonna get a couple pictures here. I'm feeling the ice, my blades. One of the first things you always do as a skater, how slippery is this gonna be? I'm looking around the arena. The arena's packed. They allowed smoking in the arenas then. There's this like ring of smoke in the stands. Everybody's smoking cigars. I remember smelling it. But most importantly, I remember the announcer shouting, representing the United States of America. I took a deep breath in. I soaked it all in. At just 12 years old, I knew in that moment that I had made it. That little girl with the blue notebook tucked underneath her arm at 5 a.m., she had achieved what she had set out to do. The clarity of that moment, it stays with me today. I think about it all the time. A lot of it's combined with, well, what now? That can't be it, 12 years old. Like, that can't be all there is. You can't make it at 12. But here's the thing about making it. Our definition, it evolves as we grow. And that profound sense of achievement, it taught me something important about trust and partnership. Because as we get older, we can't make it alone. Everybody in this room has trusted us, not just with their wealth, but with their hopes, their dreams, and their legacy. And that takes a lot of vulnerability to share what you're dreaming about, what you're scared of, your concerns about saving for your children's education, your dreams of establishing a charitable foundation that's going to far outlive you. That takes vulnerability. And what I love about vulnerability is that it isn't about perfection, right? It's about progress. So how do we create meaningful progress when the path to financial success can seem so complex? The answer lies in the power of small improvements compounding over time. The daily things we set out to do, the daily Sauerkraut, the daily layback spin. So with that in mind, I want to tell you one story. For nearly a century, the British cycling team, and you guys might have heard this if you've ever read my favorite book, Atomic Habits, the British cycling team was so terrible, so mediocre, that the top bike manufacturers, they actually refused to sell the Brits any equipment. They were like, you are going to ruin our reputation. There is no way you're getting on my bicycle. Absolutely not. This went on for 110 years. It actually took the Brits a long time to get the message. Like, guys, we got to do something different here. They just kept doing the same thing. In 110 years, no British cyclist had ever won the Tour de France. In fact, in 110 years, they'd only ever won one medal. Ouch. So they finally wised up a little bit in 2003, and they hired a new performance director who believed in the power of tiny improvements. A philosophy that mirrors how we approach your financial well-being. His philosophy, if you improve each element of cycling by just 1%, you get a significant increase when combined. So he set out and made tiny changes. He changed the massage gels they used after training. He changed the pillows they slept on. He tried different fabrics in the wind tunnels to see which one was more aerodynamic. None of these changes were revolutionary. They weren't even significant. But together, in just 5 years, the Brits dominated cycling. In 2008, just 5 years later, they won 60% of the gold medals at the Beijing Olympics. In 2012, they won their first Tour de France. Between 2007 to 2017, a 10-year period, they won 178 world championships, 5 Tour de France wins. This period of time, to this day, is still regarded as the most successful period of cycling in history. This transformation from failure, dismal failure, to world champions shows the power of small, tiny improvements that create extraordinary results. This is exactly how we approach building lasting wealth and creating meaningful legacies. Just like the British cycling team, your financial success is built through consistent, small improvements in different areas. That's why we have conversations about how to get an extra 1% in your investment portfolios, about how to take a CD from a bank and put it in something different that's going to earn you 3 extra percent, why we rebalance quarterly instead of annually, why it's really important to create discipline with monthly contributions to 529s. This creates discipline that compounds dramatically over time, and why having quarterly family discussions about wealth and legacy can create habits that transcend generations. These small actions often seem insignificant when we're talking about them. Like, all right, we'll get to it. But combined, their effects have extraordinary outcomes. And to truly appreciate these outcomes, we need one more thing. We need perspective. Perspective can apply to a lot of different things, but today we're going to talk about it in the context of something that is very relevant for the last few weeks, investing. You see, if we focus too narrowly on daily movements, everything seems volatile and unpredictable, right? We've been living this. But if we zoom out, if we take the big picture, we look here at the S&P 500, we see progress. This is exactly why having a clear definition of why we've made it is so critical. It helps maintain perspective and avoid getting derailed by short-term volatility. Whether in markets or in life, I've seen the power of this clarity firsthand with so many of you. So here's two quick examples of how consistent small actions can create real remarkable outcomes. One of our clients started with monthly investments. Nothing dramatic, just consistent, clear vision guided by action. This consistency led them to fund their children's entire education. It was their definition of making it. Another one of our clients started with annual gifts to charities. This eventually evolved into a family foundation that's making a tremendous impact in our community today. They wanted to create something that outlasted them, their definition of making it. These results don't come from a single grand gesture. They come from clarity of purpose combined with small, consistent actions over time. So, this is why a lot of our conversations go beyond asset allocation, beyond estate planning. We explore questions that shape not just your wealth, but your legacy, so that you can live the biggest version of your lives, right? We all deserve to do that. And most importantly, so you'll know when you've made it. This isn't about complacency. This is about clarity. The elevated advice we provide comes from the cumulative power of improvements in each aspect of your life that aligns with the things you love to do, your definition of success. Because when you're clear about when you've made it, that clarity doesn't just benefit you, it ripples. It ripples in everyone in your sphere of influence. Your definition shapes not just your journey, but those around you. So as we move through today's summit, I want you to reflect on just three things. First, define what making it means to you in specific, tangible terms. Second, identify the daily discipline. Those 6 Saucons, those 10 axles from my skating days. What are your daily disciplines that will compound into extraordinary results? And third, envision the legacy you want to create once you've made it. Remember, we don't have to be perfect to make progress. We just need to be intentional, consistent, and willing to trust the process. I want to leave you with one final thought about what it means to make it. I recently found myself in the backyard running through a bubble maze. There was bubbles everywhere with my 2-year-old daughter, Poppy. It was hard to tell who was having more fun. She squealed with delight. She was running circles around the couches. And I had a moment of clarity. And that moment, I knew, with everything else in my life, there was nowhere else I'd rather be. It was a simple moment, but it was when I realized that I made it again. That little girl with the skating notebook, then on Team USA, became a mother watching her daughter chase bubbles in the backyard. Everything else was just a cherry on top.
Am I dreaming? No, I'm living in my dream.
That's the beauty of defining when you've made it. The definition, it evolves as you grow, giving us new milestones to cherish and a journey to celebrate along the way. So, with that, it is an absolute privilege to be able to welcome our next guest. Somebody is equally as special as the idea of when you made it. Something as equally special as chasing bubbles in your backyard. And I want to introduce my partner, Josh Flade, to the stage, and he's going to talk about something really special that we're building here together. Thanks so much for being here, everybody.